Clad in an elegant bridal gown, Vian sat in front of the dressing table, staring at her reflection. Her eyes, which should be beaming with happiness, shed tears. Her face, which should be glowing with happiness, had a pained visage. It was supposed to be the memorable day of her life, where she tied in a forever bond with the love of her life. But it turned out to be the worst when the two important persons betrayed her and left her with agony and unconquerable distress. Her eyes caught her father's reflection behind her. Her trembling hands reached out to wipe her tears and she stood up, turning towards him. All this while, her eyes were so fixated on her feet, not daring to peer into her father's orbs that held the look of disappointment. I had a talk with Mr. John. You will be getting married to Jungkook, he informed. His voice seemed cold and distant. She stiffened. Her hands clutched the hem of her white wedding attire. She wanted to deny, but she knew after what happened, she was in no position to question her father's decision. She slightly nodded and gulped down the tears that were threatening to fall. She heard his footsteps coming closer, and his shiny, well polished shoes came in her line of vision. He put his rough, wrinkled fingers under her chin and lifted her face. His heart clenched, seeing his dearest daughter fighting back her tears. Her face pale, and she breathed heavily to have a grip on her emotions. Look what he did to my princess. I was scared to witness this. Tears in my princess' eyes. Vine lifted his tears-filled eyes and met his chauffeured gaze filled with warmth. She couldn't control and threw herself in his arms, seeking comfort in his warmth as she sobbed on his chest. I'm sorry, father, she whispered between her loud cries. Her father stroked her head as his own eyes got teary hearing her loud wails. Never in his life ever he let a single tear drop from her eyes, and here she was crying over a boy who ran away, breaking her heart. Don't cry, my child. Don't waste your precious tears on that. He parted away and wiped her tears gently. That's why I always disliked him. I knew he wasn't a good guy, but you were blinded by his fake love. I'm sorry. She apologized, feeling guilt overpowering her hurt, reminiscing the amount of time she had argued with her father for him. She regretted the time she had crossed over his intuitions and chose him over her own father who loved her more than anything else. Cradling her face in his hands, he left a just kiss on her forehead, to which she let out a sigh. Mary Jungkook, he is a nice guy. Trust your father, Vian. I only want the best for you. You are all I have now after your mother's demise. His voice cracked in the end, thinking about his late wife, whom he loved wholeheartedly. Her hazel eyes again filled with tears as he mentioned her mother, who passed away 2 years ago after fighting a long battle with leukemia. Her father was devastated after her death, and instead of giving him a comforting shoulder, she added up to his distress. She held his palm and leave a peck on it. I will marry him, father. She watched as a small smile made its way to his lips and she forced herself to smile. The intense egg of betrayal hid behind her fake smile. Her father gently embraced her in a fatherly hug. She closed her eyes, promising herself to do anything to maintain that smile on his face. Vian stood in front of Jungkook, staring aimlessly in the air. She had so many dreams and expectations from this wedding. She was eager to get married, and the turning of events left her with nothing but the sting feeling inside her heart. No matter how much she tried to suppress her emotions and focus on the wedding, but the turmoil inside her kept her mind occupied. I think she doesn't want to marry him. Her train of thoughts derailed when she heard murmurs. She looked around and found everyone's eyes on her. Did she miss out something? Do you, Sinwai, take John Jungkook as your lawfully wedded husband? The priest reiterated. Vian looked towards her father, who was looking tensed. She sucked in a deep breath. She had to do this for her father. I do. She saw a smile creeping on her father's face, her heart filled with the contentment that she made her right decision. A genuine smile on the old man's face was what she had been doing all this against her will. In the sight of God and these witnesses, I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may now kiss. Vine averted her eyes towards Jungkook for the first time. She clenched her hands when he inched towards her. She fought back the urge to step back. He lifted her veil, and his soft yet manly features came in her line of vision. She noticed his hesitation as her eyes observed his shivering hands. Trust me. His husky voice reached her ears, and she visibly relaxed, as if that was all she needed to ease up her nervousness. She sighed in relief when he pecked her forehead and moved away with the speed of light. Her ears perked up with the loud applause and cheering of the guests. The newly wedded couples faced the crowd and bowed. Amidst all the chaos, Vine's eyes moved to her father, who was looking the happiest among all, but her teary eyes pained her heart. She descended the stairs with Jungkook's help and took blessings from his parents, who apologized to her for their younger son's deeds. She just forced a smile lost at words. They moved to her father and bowed in front of him. Please take care of her. I am giving you my heart, he said, holding Jungkook's hands. I won't disappoint you. Vine will be my sole priority, I promise. He spoke with sincerity. Vine gazed at his side profile. He looked so much like his younger brother, the one on whom she wasted 2 years of her life and got a betrayal in return. She had met Jungkook few times during some dinner meetings. Their interaction remained till formal greetings, and now he was standing beside her. As her husband, everything felt so unreal. Vine walked behind Jungkook into his house where he used to live alone, but now she will be staying with him. Two helpers carried Vine's bag inside. Sir, where should we keep these bags? In my room, he instructed, and they nodded, disappearing in the direction of his room. You must be tired. Come with me. He spoke, turning towards Vine and walked towards the stairs. She let out a sigh and followed him. Ascending a few stairs, Jungkook glanced back and found her struggling with her huge gown. He stepped down and extended his hand. Let me help you, he whispered. One glanced between him and his hand and hesitantly put her hand on his. He gently pulled her along with him, holding her hand whilst she held her gown with her other free hand. Vine looked around the lavish bedroom. She had seen these big bedrooms. In fact, she had been living in one, but this room with off-white interiors sent peace to her eyes. His fragrance lingered everywhere, and much to her surprise, it calmed her anxiety. She felt safe around him. Change your clothes. This looks uncomfortable. He pointed at the gown. You can use the bathroom. I'll change somewhere else. He spoke, taking out his clothes from the cupboard and exited the room. Vine looked at the closed door where he disappeared and sighed loudly. The weight of the act she went through felt more heavy in silence. The face of her now ex-best friend and ex-fiancé flashed before her eyes, instantly pulling tears in her hopes. The saddest thing about betrayal is that it never comes from enemies. She had read that quote somewhere, but she now understood the deep meaning these few words held. She sighed when a lone tear rolled down her cheeks. Why am I even crying for them? They are not worth my tears. She scolded herself and opened her bag to take out some comfortable clothes. Grabbing a loose t-shirt and leggings, she made her way towards the bathroom. Jungkook entered inside holding 2 cups of freshly brewed coffee. He sighed when he saw Vine sitting on the bed lost in her thoughts. She was known to be a jolly and extroverted person, and her silent demeanor didn't fit well with him. So he decided to talk to her. And what could be more better than late night coffee for a heartfelt conversation? Now he hoped she would rely on him and open up instead of keeping everything to herself. Vine, he softly called out, taking a seat beside her, maintaining a safe distance. She flinched out of her thoughts and looked at him. Coffee? He smiled and forwarded the cup of steaming coffee towards her. She blinked her eyes and took the coffee cup. She took a sip, and the bittersweet taste spread in her mouth. It felt similar to what she was feeling, except the bitter taste overtaking the sweet taste. Jungkook sipped his own coffee, his eyes keenly observing Wyan, who was drinking the hot coffee absent-mindedly. He took the last sip of his coffee and placed the empty mug on the nightstand. He glanced at Wyan, who had finished his coffee long ago but was still holding the cup. Give it to me. He took the cup from her hands, gaining her attention, and put it on the nightstand beside his. Thanks for the coffee, she whispered and smiled, which didn't reach her eyes. Sometimes it's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to vent out how you feel. Bottling up everything inside suffocate our life. It took strength to face our conflicts, our inner turmoils, and only strong people can do that. I believe you are strong, Ryan. You can open up in front of the person who is willing to listen you. He promised he won't judge you. Ryan looked at him through her glossy eyes. Indeed, it was suffocating to live with the burden of deception. She had been forcing herself to breathe throughout the day, and his words hit her weak nerves. It didn't took another moment before her tears started cascading down. She shifted closer to him and hugged him, taking him by surprise. She herself was surprised, but too miserable to notice anything. Just for few moments, she wanted to lose herself and be vulnerable. Just for few moments, she wanted someone to lean on and cry her hurt out, to voice out how she felt at that weak moment. And she found Jungkook to be that shoulder. Her heart believed he was sincere with whatever he spoke before her. They cheated. I hate them. She stammered it between her loud wails. Jungkook held her securely, as if giving her assurance he was there for her. He didn't stop her from crying. He just wanted her to get the unnecessary burden off her hurt. She wailed like a child in his arms, complaining about the misery she went through. He didn't know how many hours passed with him holding her close, giving her the needed comfort. She was still sniffing in his arms, her hands tightly clutched on his sweatshirt. Enough. Stop crying. We don't want you to be sick, he whispered, and he felt her grip loosening around his sweatshirt before she sat upright. She instantly felt cold and empty, and the stinking feeling was back. She wiped her face with the back of her hand. After crying out everything, she actually felt light. Now every breath she took didn't felt heavier than before. He had successfully lessened her pain. Feeling good, he probed, whilst she nodded her head with though small but a genuine smile on her lips. Thanks, but I ruined your shirt. She pointed at his white sweatshirt, which now had her tear stains. No, these are the evidences of how strong you are, and I proudly wear it, he asserted out with a smile. His words moved her to great extent. How can someone be so positive about everything? He was way too different from his brother, more mature and more sensitive towards people suffering, unlike his cheated brother. Let's sleep. It's quite late. He glanced at the wall clock which struck 3 in the morning. He grabbed a pillow. You take the bed, I'll take the couch. Other rooms are not clean. I'll get them cleaned tomorrow, then you can choose whichever you like. As he made a move towards the couch, one held his wrist, startling him. He looked back at her with questioning gaze. We can share the bed. It's big enough for 2 people, she suggested. He gaped at her with wide eyes. He opened and closed his mouth like a fish in the ocean. You? He shuddered. Wine understood the reason behind his hesitation. I won't lie, I truly loved him, but the moment he decided to throw away my love and cheated on me, my love for him died down the exact moment. I am not stupid to cry over, and I'm really shook by the harsh reality, but there lay another truth that we are married. She put forward her thoughts, and she was astonished as how easily she could speak whatever she was feeling. She had married him because of her father, but after witnessing his considerate side, like how he had consoled her minutes ago, she genuinely wanted to give this relationship a chance. She trusts her father's choice. Are you sure? He asked, unsure about her decision. She shifted to one side and lay down. Come here. She patted the space beside her. He peered at her before lying down on another side of bed. He covered both of them with a blanket and closed his eyes. Both were tired after the wedding and worn out, both mentally and physically. It didn't take long for them to slip into deep slumber at the wee hours of the day. Her phone pinged with alarm and she jolted up. With an excited grin on her face, she started packing her stuff, ignoring the teasing looks of her colleagues. Meena, are you looking at her smile? Someone is so eager to go home. She flushed, hearing her, and continued collecting her stuff. Anybody will be when you have a husband like John Jungkook, isn't it, Wine? Both the girls passed her teasing smirk while she shook her head. Giving them a slight smile, she grabbed her bag and walked out of her working area. Walking out of her office premises, Vian's eyes searched for her husband. Her lips curved up in a smile when she found him leaning against his car bonnet. Clad in a crisp black shirt and matching black trousers, his hair gelled back perfectly exposing his forehead. His shirt sleeves were rolled up to his elbows and his tattoos were peeking out of it. He was a perfect definition of heartthrob. Vine found herself walking towards him with never-ending smile on her face. Past few months with him were bliss. She never felt so enchanted and happy. It was all because of him that she forgot about her heartbreak. Hi, she softly spoke, gaining his attention from his phone screen. Hey, he smiled and put his phone in his pocket before standing upright. He opened the car door like a gentleman. She murmured a thanks and got inside. He rounded the car and settled on the driver's seat. Vine buckled her seat belt. She frowned when he turned around and extended his hand towards the back seat. What are you? She trailed off when he presented a bouquet of white roses in front of her. Her eyes twinkled with joy as her lips twisted into a wide grin. She took the flowers and smelled their captivating rosy fragrance. So, what excuse do you have for these flowers? She glanced at him before going back and admiring the flowers. I had delicious lunch. He spoke with a boyish grin. Vine chuckled and peered at him. You know, this doesn't make any sense. She raised her eyebrows whilst he just shrugged his shoulder before starting the car engine. Indeed, his excuse didn't make sense, but his efforts did. His small, sweet gestures never failed to bring a smile on her lips. In fact, his presence solely was enough to keep her happy. Not to exaggerate, but she could spend her entire lifetime by just watching him. Vine admired the white roses perfectly wrapped in a shiny black paper. Her mind went back to the day when he brought her flowers for the first time. Vine, he called out as soon as he entered inside the living room. He watched her coming out of the kitchen wearing an apron and a spatula in her hands. What happened? Seeing her looking at him questionably, he scratched his neck and smiled in nervousness. This is for you. He forwarded a bouquet of yellow tulips, which he was hiding behind his back. He was nervous of her reaction, but relief washed over him when she smiled and took the flowers from him. What's so special today that you bought flowers for me? I cracked a deal. She crooked her eyebrows, hearing him. But what does it have to do anything with me? She probed further, but he just shrugged his shoulder and made his way towards the room to hide his silly grin and red cheeks. She chuckled, remembering that time, gaining Jungkook's attention. You're looking so happy. Something happened? He glanced at her before focusing back on the road. Do I need a reason to be happy when I am sitting beside you? She confidently voiced out her feelings. His breath hissed, hearing her. Only he knew what her few words did to his poor heart, which was now drumming inside his ribcage. Thanks to the darkness of night that she couldn't see his scarlet cheeks. She was unknown of what effect she had on him. She had successfully enslaved the poor boy's heart. She had the power to make him insane just by her one smile, to mend him or to ruin him. Jungkook groaned and squinted his eyes before opening them. The sunlight reflected through the glass window, creating a soft hue all across the room. He rubbed his drowsy eyes and looked around, desperately searching for his wife. Past few months turned out to be a beautiful change in his life. His eyes moved to the dressing table, which was now filled with wines, makeup, and other stuff. More than half of his closet was occupied with her clothes. The hair ties here and there were a reminder of his marital status. Her one hair tie adorned his wrist, while one was tightly holding his long hair in a male bun. His room, living room, his entire house was filled with sweet raspberry fragrance. It smells like her. His trance of thoughts broke when entered inside the room with a dusting towel in her hands, headphones on, with music blasting at full volume. He observed her every movement as she paced around cleaning the room. Then he remembered that it was their day off, means day of deep cleaning. He wanted to spend some quality time with her, and he had a perfect plan for it. A flashback struck in his mind as a smile crept on his lips. Jungkook, Wine called out, taking a seat beside Jungkook, who hummed in response, his fingers aggressively typing on keyboard. Jungkook, listen to me. I am listening, Wine, speak. He glanced at her once before gazing back at his laptop screen. You know, there's a girl works with me. She was bragging about how her husband take her on dates every other day. She peered at him for some reaction. A scowl took over his face when he just hummed. She took a week off because he is taking her on a vacation. She tried once again to get some reaction from him, but he continued doing his work as if he didn't heard what she said. She rose from the couch with an angry pout adorning her lips and turned to leave. Wine? She swiftly turned around with a smile. Are you free tomorrow evening? He asked while she nodded in a heartbeat, thinking he finally got her hint. Good. Then can you buy groceries tomorrow? I have meetings. Her smile dropped at his reasoning. Groceries? She muttered with a look of disbelief. He gave her a curt nod and turned his eyes back to his laptop screen. She found her jaw and stomped her feet before turning around to leave, but stopped when he called her again. Ryan, what? She snapped angrily. He put his laptop aside and leaned against the couch. Are you free day after tomorrow? He asked the same thing. Her anger flew away as a sly smile appeared on her lips. Why? She asked, imagining scenarios in her mind. Can you? No, I ain't doing anything. I'm not free. I have a tons of work to finish. She huffed in frustration. Noticing the mischief in his eyes and his slight smirk, she understood he was playing with her. You were teasing me, ain't you? She raised her eyebrows. He laughed. You would have seen your face, your nose turned red. A pillow on his face cut him off. He looked towards one who was ready to throw another one. You messed with the wrong person, John. She threatened and aimed the pillow at him. He laughed when he successfully dodged it. Then they ran around the whole house messing things up. But did they care? Obviously no. They were busy making some sweet memories. A pillow on his face brought him back to reality. He blinked his eyes and his gaze traveled to one who was standing beside the bed. Where are you lost? I have been calling you for past 5 minutes. She kept her hands on her waist. I'm sorry, what were you saying again? Get up and help me in cleaning. Then I have to do laundry. She sighed, thinking about the pile of dirty clothes that were waiting to get washed. He whined. According to him, days off was supposed to be for resting whole day, and here his wife was making him work. He had asked up team time to appoint some workers to do the house chores, but she was adamant to do all the work by herself. According to her, it was her way to keep herself fit and healthy. Coffee? she asked, seeing his fallen face. His eyes lit up and he instantly nodded. Okay, make one for me also. He blinked his eyes in disbelief. You mean I'll prepare coffee? Smart boy, now get off. I have to make the bed. She ruffled his morning messy hair. A small gesture made his stomach churn with a different but beautiful feeling. Ryan and Jungkook were having a walk in the park after spending the whole day visiting different places. Both had a contented expression on their face as they walked hand in hand. Ryan's eyes beamed with excitement when she noticed an ice cream truck at some distance. Jungkook, who noticed the stage, chuckled at her cuteness. Want some? Vanilla. Okay, stay here, I'll be back. He jogged towards the ice cream truck while Ryan stood there looking around the park with admiring gaze. Evenings are the most beautiful part of the day because it is the time when everyone returns to their respective home. Look who we got here. She froze when she heard a familiar voice. She swiftly turned around and her eyes met with two pairs of eyes. Eyes of those two persons she despised the most. When I dumped you, you got married to my brother. How shameless you can be, Ryan. John Junghyun, Jungkook's younger brother, and her ex-fiancé spoke. She scoffed internally at his audacity to blame her. I didn't know you were that kind of girl. You made big promises of loving me endlessly and what not, and you got married to my brother same day I left you. He was cut off by a hard punch on his face. He groaned, holding his jaw, and lifted his gaze to find enraged Jungkook standing before him. What did you say to my wife? Shameless. There's no more shameless other than you and your so-called girlfriend. The audacity of you to cheat on her and then blame her later on. He gritted out and landing another punch on his face. He lost his balance and fell on the ground. Be thankful that we are keen. Otherwise, I am the worst when someone dares to talk ill about my wife. Listen here. Stay away from my woman, otherwise, I won't think twice before gouging out your eyeballs and cutting your venom spitting tongue. And I swear, I won't care if you are my brother. He glared at him with blazing eyes. His hard gaze traveled to Vine's ex-best friend, who shivered at his spot and looked down. Grabbing Vine's wrist, he dragged her along with him. The car ride was silent affair as Jungkook glared at the road ahead while Vine blushed every now and then remembering the scene earlier. Why didn't you say anything earlier? His cold voice reached her eyes. I was about to, but you came and punched him. Her voice turned low at the end when he glared at her. It should be you punching him now. He frowned in frustration and looked ahead. But you did. Of course I did. What do you think? I would let him speak nonsense about my wife. No one dares to speak bad about my woman and gets away with it. He shook his head with a statement. She flushed. My woman had done something to her hurt. It left her with a tingling sensation. Her feelings for Jungkook were too strong and pure that sometimes it made her wonder she actually loved Junghyun or it was just infatuation. Because what she felt around Jungkook was out of the world. It was relaxing and full of warmth. She didn't have to force herself to forge a bond with him. It happened naturally. Now, why are you smiling? He asked, irritated about her silence earlier. His distaste only made her giggle. I didn't crack a joke for you to show your teeth. He squinted, his eyes weighing anger, though it vanished the moment her sweet giggles reached his ears. Nothing. You look cute when you are angry, she chuckled. The frown on his face disappeared and he tore his gaze away. Blood rushed upward, tinting his cheeks and tip of ears. Vine laughed when she noticed him blushing. Oh, you blushed. She poked his cheeks, and he couldn't control himself and burst into giggles along with her. Vine stood in the balcony, admiring the crescent moon with a beautiful smile adoring her rosy lips. She was happy, contented, her mind preoccupied with Jungkook's thoughts. What are you thinking? She spoke and stood beside her. Nothing, I'm just admiring the starry sky. She glanced at him. He looked at her face, which was glowing under the soft moonlight. I am lucky that I got married to you. I'll always be thankful to the Almighty for sending you in my life, she confessed, wrapped her arms around his biceps, and placed her head on his stone shoulder. Sometimes we find the most precious thing when we are not actively looking for it. Like, I found you. He pressed a gentle kiss on her hair and rested his head on her. So cheesy, Mr. John. Only for you, Mrs. John, he replied, earning a heartfelt chortle from her. You know, I am thankful that they betrayed me. If they didn't, I wouldn't have got you as my soulmate. Now I strongly believe there is something good hidden underneath a bad happening. You are that good hidden thing, she exclaimed. Her positive attitude towards the negative events of her life spoke of Jungkook. He had successfully tainted her in his shades. The moon is beautiful, isn't it? She lifted her gaze to his face, her eyes searching for his. Indeed, the moon is beautiful. He gazed back at her, their eyes depicting the unshed feelings. The moon shy away and hid behind the clouds. Well, it was a beautiful feeling of becoming a cupid of someone's indirect love confession, especially if the universe conspired to bring them together.